always rally against it. We'll be talking about that in a little while. But first, in light of accusations of a cover-up, BBC One's Panorama last night investigated why the corporation decided to drop a Newsnight investigation into sexual abuse claims against Jimmy Savile last December. According to Newsnight reporter Liz McKean, where there was once an eagerness to get the story out, suddenly the BBC decided to shelve the investigation. Producer Marion Jones had this to say.
I was sure the story would come out one way or another, and that if it did, the BBC would be accused of a cover-up. In fact, I wrote an email to Peter saying the story is strong enough, and the danger of not running it is substantial damage to BBC reputation.
So with news today that up to 12 of Savile's victims are to sue the institutions like the BBC and NHS for failing to protect them, and BBC Director General George Entwistle appearing before MPs today, we're asking, is the Savile scandal eroding our trust in key British institutions?
Well, first of all, I, like everybody, am appalled, at this story, the legs this story has, and how it just keeps growing every day. I saw most of the documentary, the Panorama documentary, last night. And so fascinating watching a documentary against the BBC by the BBC, which is a first in my experience. But exactly like Marion said, there is what has happened. I am appalled on the statistics that I have, that everybody else has, is that this documentary was pulled when there was clearly enough evidence into a thorough investigation. And the fact is that not only did they pull the documentary at the 11th hour, they then went on to pay tribute to Jimmy Savile by celebrating his life.
Yeah.
And that to me is absolutely appalling.
With two programmes.
With two programmes. Appalling. Those people at the BBC, which is not saying that the people they're now are responsible, but the people at that time, under their watch, they knew that there was enough evidence that had come to public attention since Jimmy Savile died. They knew that they had lots of evidence. They pulled the documentary and they went on to do shows like celebrations of Jim will fix it and everything. And it's absolutely appalling. It's no excuse.
They had a lot of testimonies. I wouldn't say evidence.
They had enough information and allegations to go forward with their investigation.
And
they certainly
of course,
had enough of that.
We need to stress as well that at the moment they are all allegations. We touched on, obviously, that BBC Director General George Entwistle, he appeared before MPs today. This is what he had to say. He said, I think if you looked at what we achieved since the scale of the crisis became clear, I think you would see that we have done much of what we should have done and done it in the right order and with proper respect paid to the right authorities. What do you think he means by that?
Oh, I don't know. You know what? I don't know anymore. I don't think it's ever a good idea for institutions to investigate themselves, full stop. It's like the police investigating themselves. They're never going to prosecute each other.
This was him talking to MPs.
This was this morning, the Select Committee. He's not responsible for most of it, probably not. What I find really weird is why the emails were pulled last night from that Panorama, which basically says there is a cover-up. That's what the emails were supposedly saying. The lawyer said we can't put these out because there might be accusations of libel. So it does stink of a cover-up, but it stinks of a cover-up from an organisation that's looking into itself. And I just don't think that's ever a good idea. You've got to go outside for people to investigate independently. Otherwise, you're never going to find anything out.
But
for MPs...
Do you think that we should go down the line of the Leveson inquiry, then?
Well, we don't need another giant inquiry. And the point is, with the BBC are taking, the brunt of the blame for Savile's crimes, Jimmy Savile's crimes. And
at the moment, alleged crimes.
At the moment, yes, alleged crimes. Yeah, and there are a lot of people coming out and saying these things. But what I find personally really, really sad about the whole thing is that this didn't come out while he was alive, so that he could pay. And the thing is, the BBC is a massive organisation. It's funded by the taxpayers, and somebody is going to have to pay sooner or later, and it's going to be us. Unfortunately, if somebody, anyone, had just come out, had the courage, or the CPS had actually been able to bring a prosecution to him, he could have paid for it.
But we keep saying these are only allegations. These are only allegations. The fact is, we have to start believing some of these people. This was the problem, that I can't believe that everybody that's come forward says that their voice wasn't heard. Why was their voice not heard? As far as I'm concerned, Jimmy Savile knew where the bodies were buried, and that's why there was a massive cover-up. I'm sorry, metaphorically speaking, there is more people involved than Jimmy Savile, because nobody... I mean, I cannot understand as well how Jimmy Savile was not even very good at what he did. He was a... You know, as far as I'm concerned, he wasn't. He was a sleazy creep in a tracksuit. So why did they keep getting in these jobs all the time?
He was hailed as a modern-day saint because of all the charity work he did.
He was horrible to the people. The experience I've had, and personal experience, he was horrible to the people he worked with. He had no respect for people who don't have a voice. So why was he continually employed and held up as this iconic figure? End of story.
Can I just say that there are many people who are not particularly pleasant to work with across the board and in every industry, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they have committed evil deeds or wicked deeds. And I think that, I'm not defending in any way, but we have to remember that things were different then
and also you have to remember, Andrea, that he did £40 million in charity.
And that's what everybody... That's why he's been allowed... They said people wouldn't believe.
Huge amount of money, and I think...
Doesn't matter how much money he got, Jane.
I know, but this is... I'm not shocked, to be quite honest, because all these corporations that are allegedly, you know, being looked into now, if you're a small voice, and I'm sure there's quite a few of us here who've tried to do something, whether it's you trip over and your council won't pay up, you get told to go away, that one, you haven't got the money to fight the case, two, you will be just laughed out of court. The thing now, it's David and Goliath now, because there's a combination of people saying exactly the same things, and I think that sling is going to hit the giant.
But who are the people at the NHS? He was given access. You know...
What I think is really interesting as well is we're looking at all this with
getting right heads up here.
we're looking at all this with the power of hindsight, which is an incredible thing. And I think it becomes even more powerful when you take a look at a clip like this, which at the time was seen to be absolutely fine. Take a look.
Get yourselves there like that. Just put yourself in there.
Oh, lovely. I get two.
You get two. In there. Oh. I should be giving girls away. Lessons there, but I'm going to get some down here. We've got them from Broadmoor, we've got them from all over here.
I mean, when you know now, you know, he's putting Gary Glitter in with a whole load of vulnerable girls that have come from Broadmoor. He just said that himself. You recoil in horror, but we didn't know.
Also had unlimited
know that
access,
then. So, go on, Denise. Say what you were going to say.
This is what I can't understand is that you know, we now have if the allegations are true that he had this access to the NHS hospitals, particularly Stoke Mandeville and Leeds, ironically known as Jimmy's, I think it was that hospital, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where the nurses have said now that they were telling the children in the beds to say, when Jimmy Savile comes around, pretend you're asleep. So the fact is that the kids in the beds knew, the nurses knew. How was this not? You know, they're saying there was nothing reported. Why wasn't it reported?
But it's all these giant institutions now, and the question that you, Andrea, asked at the top of this is our trust being eroded? And yes, of course it is, because if you've got that many people covering up, and when you think about it, it's fine for these people to come out now and say, oh yeah, I told the kids to stay asleep, but if you actually knew what was going on, why didn't it come out before? It should have come out before, and now it's fine. Everyone, you know, safety in numbers, everybody's coming out and saying he did this and he did that.
He was also involved with gangland people as well, and he was very threatening.
That's an allegation.
But the thing is, it is the public that ultimately believed he was the saint that everybody portrayed him as. You know, there was a lot of people in the media, not just the BBC, but newspapers as well, had stuff on him.
And
they could never have run it
because
they basically believed that the public wouldn't buy it, because we all thought he was this fantastic man who did all the charity marathons.
There was something on Panorama last night that said there was already 4 police investigations on the go while he was alive.
Exactly.
So everybody's saying, why didn't they speak out before? They did speak out. What we have to do now is hope that justice is going to be done. That's it.
OK, it's time for a break. Loads more is still to come when we return in 3. We'll see you then.